grab and go. Showboating Amy Robach and TJ Holmes want to put on a celebratory front, but their romantic gestures betray tension. Since news of their affair broke, ex-Good Morning America hosts Amy Robach and TJ Holmes have spent months trying to convince the world that this was their happily ever after. But a body language expert claimed that the performance the couple puts on isn't what it seems, saying they look tense during their debut live-format podcast. Amy, 50, and TJ, 46, kept up their massive podcasting drive on Thursday and debuted an in-person listening event in New York City. The ousted GMA3 host spoke to friends and family, holding mics and sitting on a small wooden stage at Soho House. The intimate evening included one of Amy's daughters, Annalise McIntosh, 17, and TJ's daughter, Sabine, 11. A clip shared on Instagram showed Amy and TJ cheering as a camera panned their family and friends group. Body language expert Judi James said Amy and TJ tried to create a sense of spontaneity at the dimly lit afterparty. When the person filming shouted action, Amy waved her arms and punched the air, and her mouth was wide open as she cheered. This was a scanning, celebratory shot where everyone was supposed to be on brand with Amy and TJ, James told the U.S. Sun. As per Amy and TJ's schedule, they were all supposed to appear excited and jubilant. It was also clearly intended to look spontaneous and by their direction, she said. But James implied that it looked less natural than they intended. It was Amy doing all the major shouting and showboating, she said. The couple continues to push their relationship narrative without a second thought. Amy shared photos of herself and TJ at the swanky event on Instagram. James said the pair did not seem relaxed, perhaps for the first time. An air of awkwardness seemed to have permeated Amy and TJ's romantic poses for this promotion, she said. They stood together in an embrace that at first included eye contact. Amy and TJ's body poses suggested tension rather than looking relaxed or playful. TJ had his hands around Amy, but his lower torso was facing in front of Amy after he turned himself away from her. Amy grabbed TJ's arm. Neither looked relaxed here, suggesting that for the first time, they might have started to feel cautious about their PDAS. The couple's podcast, Amy and TJ, launched in 2023, a year after their affair came to light. Episodes have covered their relationship history from when it was made public. Amy and TJ have revealed their views on marriage and answered fans' questions. They released statements from 2022 to explain their version of events. Their first podcast promotion image on Instagram was #tagged #SilentNoMore. During one episode, Amy spoke about how their relationship impacted their children, calling it evolving. "We had relationships with each other's kids when we were just friends," she said. "So as tough as it's been for so many people in our lives, it's the most difficult for them because now they're having to look at us in a different way with one another." Page 6 reported that Amy compared herself to Cersei from Game of Thrones and Elizabeth Taylor at the live podcast event. James suggested Amy was being dramatic. Cersei was a strong and rather wicked woman who ultimately destroyed all her enemies in an act of carnage, she said. Presumably, Amy was referring to the act of penance Cersei was forced to do when she walked through the streets naked. A nun rang a bell shouting shame, so this was Amy's dramatic comparison. Amy's Elizabeth Taylor comparison could also have upset some in the room. Liz Taylor was married 8 times, while Amy has 2 ex-husbands. It would even make TJ sound like one in a long line. It might have sounded like a hint at more years of family instability, and not this happy ever after. Amy was reportedly joking about not being in a room with bright lights in a year and a half. After they lost their jobs, Amy and TJ vacationed, ran marathons, and walked hand in hand around New York City. But when their affair came to light, they were still married to other people. Amy to actor Andrew Shue, 56, and TJ to lawyer Marley Fabig, 45. This was a second for Amy, who divorced actor Tim McIntosh in 2009. After Amy and Tim married in 1996, they had 2 daughters, Ava, 21, and Annalise, 17. Like Andrew, Tim, a former MLB baseball player, is known to keep a low profile. James claimed despite this, Amy and TJ continue to share details about their affair publicly. Andrew seems more low-key, just like Tim McIntosh, she said. Amy's divorce from Andrew and the traumatic fallout from her affair with TJ have been headline-making. Like many families of a divorce, there could even be divided loyalties. Amy and TJ continue discussing the past and now with the live podcast, that much more publicly. They are very brand-centric, pushing their coupledom in the podcast and now, their live version. The risk of doing this podcast live might be that they would upset everyone involved in their history. They might upset people who were listening in the audience. Discussing previous marriages can often stir up family emotions.